Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the English summary, a gist and a translation of the Majlis of Hazrat Qamar Uzzaman Saheb Damat Barakatuhum, which took place on Monday, the 25th of Shawwal 1442, corresponding with the English date 7th of June 2021. Hazrat Wala Damat Barakatuhum says that the personality under discussion is Hazrat Sayyidina Ali Zainul Abidin Ibn Hussein Ibn Ali Rahimahullah Ta'ala. Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab used to quote this incident, which I will read out to you a bit later. He would be affected himself and he would weep, and he would cause the entire Majlis also to cry and weep. Ibn Uyayna Rahimahullah relates, Ali ibn al-Hussein went on Hajj. After tying the ihram, he mounted his steed, his conveyance, and turned pale out of fear. He began trembling profusely and could not say the labbaik. Here I am, O Allah. People asked him, why are you not saying the labbaik? He replied, I fear saying the labbaik and Allah replying, La labbaik. Your labbaik is not accepted. Your coming here is not accepted. People said, but it is necessary to say the labbaik. He eventually said it when they persisted, but the moment he said it, he lost consciousness and fell off his conveyance. Hazrat Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, rahimahullah, who himself was an eminent worshipper and saint, used to say, I have not come across a more abstinent person than Hazrat Ali ibn Hussein rahimahullah. Worship was the main occupation of his life, and he used to spend most of his time in it. He used to perform 1,000 rakat of optional salah a day, and this practice continued until the end of his life. This is why he was given the title Zainul Abidin, the adornment of the worshippers. He would never miss out the night prayer, Qiyamul Layl. Whether at home or on journey, his devotion in worship was of such a level that when he stood before Allah for salah, his entire body would tremble. Abdullah ibn Salam relates, when he used to stand up for salah, his entire body would tremble. People asked him, what happens to you? He replied, what do you people know? Before whom am I standing, and with whom am I engaging in private conversation? He used to become completely engrossed in his salah and would not be conscious of anything else. Now what can I write about these illustrious and lofty conditions and ranks? I can only express grief. Hazrat Wala Damat Barakatuhum is remarking and writing in the footnote, what can I write about these illustrious and lofty conditions, these high spiritual halat and ranks? I can only express grief and sorrow over the fact that I have not received even a hundredth part of such conditions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His grace and kindness, bestow me, my friends and my followers these excellent conditions and imani ranks. Infaq fi sabilillah, his spending in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Spending in Allah's cause, generosity and open-heartedness were his special attributes. He would spend continuously in Allah's cause. His hand was always extended to help the poor and needy. He would load sacks of grain on his back and convey them to the houses of the poor. When he was given a bath, a ghusl, after his demise, blue marks were seen on his blessed and his Mubarak back. The people concluded that this was a result of the sacks which he used to carry, at night and convey to the houses of the poor. What about his hilm, his tolerance and his forbearance? He was just like his father, Hazrat Hussain radiallahu ta'ala an in his forbearance and tolerance. He would not be affected by the sharpest verbal rebukes, and he would stomach the most unpleasant and bitterest statements against him. Allahu Akbar. It was his habit not to pay any heed to those who make futile and useless statements and accusations. Some audacious people were so impudent that they would say to him, "We are talking to you." He would reply, "I am disregarding you," because they wanted some type of an answer. They wanted some type of challenge. They would say, "But we are talking to you." When they would make these accusations and these futile and useless statements, and he would reply, "I am disregarding it." They would say, "We are talking to you," and he would reply, "I am disregarding it." If he was informed of a certain person disparaging him and making bad statements about him, he would go to the person's house, speaking to him in a kind and affectionate way, and say to him, "If what you said about me is true, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me. And if it is false, may He forgive you." The erudite scholar Hazrat Maulana Habibur Rahman Al-Azmi rahimahullah writes in A'yan al-Hujjaj, his title is Zainul Abidin. He was a person who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and was an ardent worshipper. He was the son of Hazrat Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala an and the grandson of Hazrat Ali radiyallahu ta'ala an. The awe which he commanded and the respect which people had for him can be gauged from the following incident. Hisham ibn Abdul Malik went for Hajj when he was the heir apparent appointed to become the next Khalif. Ali ibn Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala an, rahimahullahu ta'ala an, also went the same year. Coincidentally, they performed tawaf together, and Hisham reached the Hajar Aswad first. He tried his utmost to kiss the Hajar Aswad, but could not manage. Ali ibn Hussain then reached there, and all the people gave way. Those who were there at the Hajar Aswad moved away, and he kissed it peacefully. Hisham's men asked him about the identity of this person. He replied, "I do not know him." The poet Farazdak was present there. He said in a brave and confident tone, "I know him. He is Ali ibn Hussain." He then rendered his famous poem, which commences thus: "Hada ibn khayri ibadillahi kullihimi." This is the son of the best of Allah's creation. هذا التقي النقي الطاهر العلم. He himself is a pious, pure, chaste person and personality of Islam. هذا الذي تعرف البطحة وطأته. This is the person whose walk Batha, the soil of Makkah, recognizes. وَالْبَيْتُ يَعْرِفُهُ وَالْحِلُّ وَالْحَرَمُ. The Kaaba recognizes him, and so does Hil and the Haram, the area which is outside the Haram but within the Miqat is the Hil. Now his fear and Sayyidina Zainul Abidin rahimahullah, his fear and beseeching before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, the provider of everything. Listen to this particular incident. This is the incident that Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah rahimahullah ta'ala would quote so often. Ismail rahimahullah relates, "I was performing tawaf of the Kaaba one night when I saw a youngster holding on to the ghilaf, the cover of the Kaaba, and saying these couplets: Ya man yujibu du'a al-muttarri fi dhulami. O the being who accepts the dua of the restless in the darkness. Ya kashif ad-durri wal balwa ma'as saqami. O the one who removes affliction and grief from the sick. قد نام وفدك حول البيت وانتبهوا. O the one, the delegation which came to you walked around the Kaaba, then slept and woke up again. وأنت يا حي يا قيوم لم تنمي. But you, O the living, the upholder of all, never sleep. أدعوك ربي حزينا هائما قلقا. O my Allah, I am beseeching you while I am in the state of worry, distress and anguish. فارحم بكائي بحق البيت والحرم. So show mercy to my crying by virtue of the Kaaba and the Haram. إن كان جودك لا يرجوه ذو سفه. If a foolish person, a sinner, cannot have hope of your pardon, فمن يجودك على العاصين بالكرم. Who is going to pardon the sinners with kindness? The person read the above couplets. Asmu'i is saying, rahimahullah, the person read the above couplets and cried profusely and then made the following supplication. ألا أيها المقصود في كل حاجة. O you who are the objective of every need. شكوت إليك الضر فارحم شكايتي. I described my problem to you, so remove my problem. ألا يا رجائي أنت تكشف كربتي. O the being in whom I placed all my hopes, you alone can remove my grief. فهب لي ذنوبي كلها وقض حاجتي. Pardon all my sins and fulfill all my needs. أتيت بأعمال قباح ردية. I have come before you with despicable and contemptible sins. وما في الوراء عبد جنا كجنايتي. I do not think there is anyone in the world who is a worse sinner than me. أتحرقني بالنار يا غاية المنى. O the end of all my hopes, are you going to burn me in the fire? فأين رجائي ثم أين مخافتي. If this were to happen, of what benefit would my hopes have been? Of what benefit would my fear have been? In other words, my hopes in you and my fear in you did not benefit me. After saying the above, the person lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Asmu'i rahimahullah relates, I went close to the youngster and I realized he was Hazrat Zainul Abidin, Ali ibn Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib rahimahullah. On seeing this, I raised his head, placed it in my lap and began crying myself. A few drops of my tears fell on his cheek. This caused him to open his eyes and he said, who is this person who has become an obstacle between me and my Allah and is crowding me? I replied, Hazrat, I am your servant, Asmu'i. I added, O our master, you are from the family of the Prophet and from the fountainhead of messengership. Why then are you so fearful? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not say, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Allah only wants to remove loathsome things from you, O family of the Prophet, and to completely purify you. He replied, O Asmu'i, what are you saying? Allah Ta'ala created paradise for His obedient servants, even if they are Abyssinian slaves, and hell for the sinners, even if they are free Quraysh people. Allah Ta'ala has created hell for the sinners, even if they are free Quraysh people. Did Allah not say, فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. When the trumpet is blown, neither will there be any kinship on that day, nor will they ask about one another. Then, when the trumpet will be blown, neither will be there any kinship on that day, nor will they ask about one another. فَمَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Then he whose scales are heavy, it is they who are successful. وَمَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ فِي جَهَنَّمَ خَالِدُونَ. And he whose scales are light, it is they who squandered their own selves, abiding in hell fire. From amongst his malfuzat and his irshadat, his golden statements, Hazrat Zainul Abidin says, I am astonished at the arrogant and proud person who just yesterday was a trivial drop of semen and who will become a corpse tomorrow. I am dumbfounded by the person who has any doubts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when his own birth is right before him. In other words, he was a non-entity. There was no sign of him. A being made him an entity and brought him into existence. Allahu Akbar. In another of his malfuzat, he says, I am astonished at the person who rejects resurrection and life after death, when his first creation is before him. Allah Ta'ala created him first. What is so difficult for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to resurrect him? I am amazed at the person who toils for a temporary place and casts aside the everlasting place by not making preparations for it. He further goes on to say, he used to make dua as follows: O Allah, I seek refuge in you from making my exterior, my outward good in the sight of people, while my interior, my internal, my batin is wicked. Allahu Akbar. O Allah, when I committed a wrong, you treated me well. If I commit wrong in the future, treat me well again. His face used to turn yellow, Sayyidina Zainul Abidin rahimahullah, when he performed wudu. His family people would ask him that, why does this happen to you when you perform wudu? You go pale in the face. He replied, do you not know before whom I am making preparations to stand? Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Such wonderful malfuzat. Standing in front of Allah, he used to go pale, yellow in the face. With what fear? I asked the person who was going to be a witness and was engaged in activities of the court. He was once saying to me, Hazrat, make dua, I'm going to the high court today. And I said, but you're not the criminal. What's the big deal and what's the fuss? He said, Hazrat, you don't know what it is to stand in front of the judge in the high court. Allahu Akbar. Then what can we say about standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Khaja Azizul Hasan Madzub rahimahullah ta'ala was a deputy, he was a inspector who would go out to the schools and see the performances of teachers, etc. He had other duties as well. On one occasion, he went into the classroom. The teacher was unaware. He was writing something on the board, and then suddenly, to his surprise, he finds the inspector behind him with his book in his hand, making notes and seeing how he's teaching and what are his improvements and where are the weak points, etc. On this, the teacher falls to the ground unconscious. Allahu Akbar. Nevertheless, he finishes his work for the day. He returns to the khanqa and he says to Hazrat Tanvi that, Hazrat, this is what happened today. This is what happened today. And if a person fell unconscious by seeing one of his seniors, and I am an ordinary person, then what about when we should keep this in our mind, that we are standing in front of Allah and Allah is watching us. And what's going to happen when we stand in front of Allah tomorrow? وَأَمْنَا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. Hazrat Tanvi rahimahullah, who was constantly seeing at the progress of his students and his disciples, he said, and he remarked, Acha, ye khiyal aane laga. Acha, these thoughts are now coming into your mind. Because they were ever watchful about the spiritual progress of their students, their murids and their disciples. Let us make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses us with batini taraqqi and progress. He gives us and increase us in our yaqeen in the akhirat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the hidayat to renew and make tajdeed of our iman. Allah ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the hidayat of pondering regarding our halat and our spiritual states and conditions, so that the fikr for islah can be created in us and we can make islah of ourselves. I'm making this dua, you also make dua. Allahumma aslih li ummati Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma aghfir li ummati Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma tajawaz an ummati Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma فرج عن أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم ارحم أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our islah the islah of our nafs. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم بحرمة سيد النبي الكريم صلى الله عليه وسلم.